A very special guest with me today on the BCast. Tina White is with me. Tina has her own company called Panoramic Academy, in which she actually gives business ideas and not tips, but basic, good, firm ideas on how to run a business and other types of financial things. And she's joining us today on the BCast, and it is such a thrill to have her as we kick off our series on females in the HVAC industry. Tina White, thank you so much for finally joining me. It's been a little while getting you here, and I alluded to on a former cast that I wanted to do a series with females in the HVAC industry, and you came to mind first, and we've just kind of not been able to get our schedules together till now. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I really believe it's beneficial as we see more and more females getting into our industry, either on the technical side or on the business side. And that is still kind of a rarity, but I have lately noticed more and more coming in. And we're just going to have a conversation, kind of get to know you, let our folks get to know you, and before we're done, how they can get a hold of you, and we'll be sure that we put that information on here as well. But just kind of tell us about Tina White up until this point.
Okay. Well, I started my career with the accounting path, where I'm a CPA, started out audit and tax, ended up moving into software consulting, and ended up starting my own CFO for hire type of business back in 2010. And then out of nowhere, I decided to buy Brown Heating and Cooling in 2015. And so it made just logical sense for a CPA to buy an HVAC company.
Sure.
And so we ended up selling it, spoiler alert, sold it in 2021. And so now I am teaching business owners the business side of running the company, because a lot of business owners are really good at either the sales or the service, but they don't quite invest the time that they should on the business side. So I help it make it a little bit easier for them to learn that. Right.
Well, you're a teacher at heart. I know that because I've seen that side of you. And another spoiler alert, I had the great privilege of working for and with Tina for several years at Brown Heating and Cooling, and saw that side of you that, you know, in your heart of hearts, you love to teach. And you use that as part of your business model, in fact, is instruction and the importance of that. And just kind of tell us where, I mean, I understand that, but just sort of tell us how that mindset helped you grow the business that you did grow at Brown. How did the instructional and the educational mindset played into that?
I think I've naturally always been more of a teacher instead of let me just, you know, sometimes business owners really focus in on let me add to the rule book. Let me just tell them this is our way or the highway type of thing. And I've always had more of a team type of approach. Now, you do have circumstances where you just have to have roles, but there's a lot of decisions that business owners and leaders make where it's really more of a team effort. How can we really optimize everyone's strengths? And training is inherently in that. Let me take the time to explain why we charge this for our pricing. Teach the team, instead of just saying it is what it is, teach them how much it costs to run a truck per hour. Teach them everything takes longer than 5 minutes. Like in their mind, they're thinking, well, you know, I was able to help the customer with only 5 minutes or a $5 part off my truck. Pull back the curtain, let them understand advertising costs, workers' comp, insurance costs, all those different types of things. And I'm not saying you need to show them a balance sheet or an income statement, but you can share some of those key numbers that invite them into that conversation, teach them the why. Then they're more equipped to be able to help you. They'll act more like leaders because they're not just blindly trusting the rule that you put in place. Right. So I think that's always been my thing, is I wanted more teammate approach than here's the rules, go follow the rules.
Right. I remember when you introduced that into a team meeting, and you actually broke down how much per hour it took to run a truck. And I remember the comments of some of the guys. It didn't surprise me because I've done, I've managed and I have done this. Some of these technicians actually were amazed at, where did you come up with that big number? And then when you broke it down, they were like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And did I feel like it did? Do you feel like it actually cost them a little buy-in by being transparent there?
Yes, it was. That was one of my favorite numbers to share when I think back on all the different things that we had training on, because one, it did create buy-in. There was no longer this friction of, well, that price is too high. Right. They understood it because I didn't just say a number and they had to kind of fill in the gaps, because they're coming to the table with, this is how much I'm paid per hour. I know how much a tank of gasoline costs. I pay insurance on my truck. Like, they're filling in some of those gaps, but they don't know how much workers' comp. They don't know about advertising. They don't know how much the dispatcher, like adding all of those overhead, they're not aware of all that stuff. And so when you help fill in that gap, that does create the buy-in. It also, in our circumstance, it ended up coming back. I had created a calculator that we deployed where they entered the number of hours. I think it was for calculating ductwork. And it was one of the calculators we didn't use too often. And so they typed in the number of hours and the materials, and it spit out a price that they should charge. And the technician was slowing down enough to say, wait a minute, if I multiply it by the cost per hour that I've been taught times the hours that I typed in, we're not going to make money on this. So he stopped, called the office. It turns out there was a flaw in the calculator. Instead of blindly just trusting whatever we put out there as a leader, they actually had buy-in, gave us feedback, gave us the opportunity to fix it before we had a nightmare of a problem with that customer.
They protected the company.
Yes. And then also, one of the other conversations where it came back up, we were talking about the cost per hour. I can't remember what the training was on, but we ended up layering that in other trainings. And one of the technicians, it just warmed my heart. He was like, and that's not even considering the lost opportunity cost. And I was like, oh, gold star for him. Because it's just that.
You're a new vice president right now.
Yes. Because that's what every business owner dreams of.
Sure,
it's having those types of conversations with the people that can impact it the most. And that's where you don't have to share every number, but I promise you there's probably 10 that will have a huge impact. And you're teaching your team how they impact the profitability and the cash flow of the company, which when you have the right people and great profitability and cash flow, you're fixing a whole lot of the problems that are in our businesses.
Absolutely. And this is a heating and air industry that we're in, and this is what I choose to talk about. And so many out there are struggling maybe, with what we just talked about. And I will say this from an insider standpoint, because I was there, I watched you and Jamie, your husband, and you and Jamie both together purchase this company. And I watched, because we had several, early on in my tenure there, we had very many early morning meetings at the White House, we call it, and you and Jamie's house off site, to discuss, do we have the right people? Do we have the right people on the bus in the right seats on the bus? Because without that, what you just said doesn't work.
It doesn't.
And so take just a moment to tell that, that came into your way of wanting to do things. How did you come about with that? Was that just always there when you started? Or did you start? Because I didn't know you for the first year of your business, really. When you bought Brown, how did that get into your, business plan, so to speak?
That was something I learned during that first year of owning it before you joined. Having an accounting background, it bled into IT and HR, those types of things, and so I naturally started with the idea of any change that I needed to make from an employee standpoint needed to go through the rule book, the employee manual.
Sure.
And it was exhausting because when you've hired we bought a business, and so some of the people were employees before we bought it, and just some changes and adjusting to the changes we were making, just all these different things were happening, and we felt like we were constantly battling people looking for loopholes. And it's exhausting. You can never outsmart someone that's purposely looking for ways to get around the rules. You just can't do it.
Sure.
And so that's when, around that same time you started, we were like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to focus in on hiring the great people. We called them careaholics, because we found that if you don't care about your own safety, care about the customer, care about the company long term, nothing else works.
Right.
No process, no system, no rule, nothing else works.
Right.
And so we just really we changed our hiring process. We changed all of our communication. We started trusting first, giving first, doing all those things first, knowing that we would be attracting the right people and creating that type of team so we could have those conversations about finances and money and not have any of that thrown back in our face and used against us.
Sure.
And so that was something that I learned on the job, owning it for the first year.
Right.
But it was a good thing to see. You still need an employee manual. You definitely still need that. But hiring based on the spirit and the culture that you want to create, that great attitude, really comes from, you can't really get that in an employee manual. You just have to kind of show that.
It's not written down. Point of reference, Tina actually owns the copyright to the word careaholic.
Yes.
That's cool.
I just, when I thought back on all of the reasons why different situations didn't work, it all came back to caring. You've got to just surround yourself with people that care.
Absolutely.
That's not there, nothing else works.
Nothing else works if they don't. So careaholics actually became one of the Brown core values. We are careaholics. And it does go, I mean, there's no replacing it. You cannot. Here's what I learned, Tina, just from being around you and Jamie for those years. When you see the cream of the crop, when you see the culture that was created there at Brown, everything else just looks so foreign. It does. You look at it inside maybe another company and go, wow, those poor folks. Because over here, we used to use the grass as greener.
Yeah.
You've reached the greenest grass right here at Brown. And I believe that. I totally, because I experienced it alongside you. So, as a female business owner in the HVAC industry, you encountered some ups and downs. Did you encounter any of those because you were female?
I'm not sure if it was female or if it was because I was an accountant. I know that there's a really strong presence of most HVAC owners grew up in the industry. It could be grandson, it's just passed down from generation to generation.
Sure.
And so you started out as a technician or as an installer and you grow up in the industry. So I'm not sure how much of it was female versus just the outsider from an accountant. It's okay, well, what are you going to do? You just know a lot about numbers. How are you really going to be able to help? But I feel like we were able, especially internally, we were able to, because my husband has an IT degree, so we're okay, well, that makes sense for us to get together and buy an HVAC company.
Absolutely.
But it worked out really well because we were able to push back on some of the industry assumptions.
Norms,
yes. And kind of push back on, well, does it have to be that way just because it's been done that way for 30 years? Can we try something new?
Sure.
And one of the things that I really started to notice was people would say, oh, well, that would never work. And I would ask, okay, well, how did you try it?
Right.
Oh, well, so-and-so told me it wouldn't work.
Right.
Okay, well, we're going to try it.
Right.
Because I want to see it,
Sure.
and put my own stamp on it and just kind of see. Now, I understand you can't change everything, but there are a lot of opportunities to make improvements in the in the industry.
That's right. And one thing I noticed about you and your management style is that if the horse was dead, you just got off the horse, and it wasn't personal to you. I noticed that. I've told Kathy, my wife, that many times. I saw, when Tina reaches a point with something and it's not working, she doesn't use a bigger hammer. She doesn't, try to find a different angle. She just gets off the horse and tries something else. And that is what a lot of folks in our industry, owners, service managers, they lack that ability to do that. And it takes something extra.
I think part of that is I view a lot of things as experiments. And so because of my background, I've been very focused on numbers and systems. Systems rarely work the first time you put them out there. Mm-hmm. And so I've always presented it, most changes, as we're going to experiment with this is version 1. It's kind of like software 1.0. Mm-hmm. And these are the outcomes that we think we'll get. Right. It's not going to work perfectly, and we're going to pivot. We're going to make adjustments, and we're going to come back out with 2.1. Like, we're just going to adjust. And so I never looked at it as systems or numbers or different things were failing. I looked at it as we're experimenting with this new way of doing things. Mm-hmm. If it works, we're going to keep going. Mm-hmm. If it kind of works, we're going to adjust. Mm-hmm. If it just flat out bombs, I'm getting off the horse, and we're going to invest our time and energy in something else.
Right. You didn't take it personal.
No, I didn't take it personal.
Right. And I did notice that about you and your style, and that's so unique because everybody wants to do it my way or the highway, and we're going to make this work no matter what. And we're going to use a bigger hammer or just buy a different horse, whatever. And it's a very unique management style and so welcome. And I would encourage anyone, to open their mind like you have done, like you did. Open your mind and you know what? We don't have to do it that way anymore. We can do it this way and possibly open up a different culture in our business. Because I heard from our guys at Brown, almost every one of them, they loved getting up, coming to work every morning. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of not so common in our industry.
And that was important for us. We wanted people that enjoyed working and were not there just for the Friday paycheck. Right. I mean, of course, we all need money. We've got, finances we've got to take care of. But, we can enjoy the journey together along the way. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are days where you've got a 125-degree attic you've got to go in. That's the way it goes. Stop by the office and pick up some snacks and
bottles of water and ice
and pickle
fill
juice.
Your cooler and pickle juice. Oh my gosh,
yes.
We did a lot of pickle juice, and that was real popular.
Yes, you can build your culture from Memorial Day to Labor Day by stocking the refrigerator with some great snacks.
Keep the guys hydrated and going for it and sugared up.
Yes, and ice cream in the freezer helps too.
Absolutely, and there was just what a terrific culture that was, and I guess one of the things that we see, and I've noticed over all the years, is that about maybe 10 to 15 years ago, our industry began this process of looking at culture in the business rather than experience. Mm-hmm. You can hire an experienced 30-year veteran technician and then not match your culture. And we see that happening more and more. And what we've learned and what I continue to still preach today, hire good people and teach them air conditioning. I can teach air conditioning. I can't teach them to be a good person. Mm-hmm. And you started that mantra with Brown, let's hire good people and develop this culture into something that is fun. Oh my gosh, we went to Audubon and drove go-karts. We've been to Top Golf. We've been skeet shooting. I
forgot about that one. Yes, that was fun.
Skeet shooting. I mean, the outings that you were sponsored during business hours.
Yes, they were paid to be there to play.
They were paid to be there to play, and it just built such a great team. And those are things that, it costs some money.
It does.
But the dividends were worth it, right?
It was totally there. Especially when, one of the misconceptions about culture is it is just the Autobahns and the Top Golf.
Right.
And that's the easier part of culture. But when you have it come back to you, like when we had 2 employees come to us when COVID hit and say, I can skip a paycheck, that's the sign you've got real culture.
Right, that's right.
Because they are willing to give back to the team. Right. And so when you're going through tough times and your team rallies together to help solve the problem, that's when you've got great culture.
Absolutely.
And and the vulnerability, like when I remember one of those first Zoom calls, when we had COVID, and some of our employees were admitting they were a little bit nervous about going into customers' homes, even though they were young and healthy.
Right.
They had maybe a grandma that was going through breast cancer treatments, and they were nervous about what they were taking back. So to me, it's about having the great culture to where everybody feels comfortable to share what they're thinking. Because if we know that, we can make adjustments.
Absolutely.
And work as a team to make that happen. And so that was really cool. Even though COVID was really tough, it was really cool to see all the fruits of all that investment come back.
It was.
As a team.
Right. And they weren't cookie cutter guys either.
Right.
I remember the first Zoom meeting we had because of COVID, and all the guys logged in that morning, and they're really what they were supposed to do was wear a mask. On Zoom, their preferred mask. And one of our techs wore a Darth Vader mask. One wore a gas mask from World War II.
Yes. The personality
showed up, and it was just so much fun.
Yes.
And we had a safety meeting, how to properly wear and care for a mask, how to put on gloves. And those were great times.
And the scavenger hunt where you had to go grab a can of corn or something.
Yes, scavenger hunt. We had Taco Day.
Yes.
We did service calls, HVAC service calls for a taco.
Yes, we did. Yes. Was that Cinco de Mayo, maybe? It was a marketing ploy?
No, it was actually National Taco Day.
Okay.
And I think we recognized that, but any customer who called that day who would give us a taco or give the technician a taco, that was their fee. That covered their drive-up charge. That
was funny because we hadn't even thought about how much to charge until we actually had someone call. So we had to go to Taco Bell's website to see.
Find out how much a taco costs to know how much we were charging.
Yeah, we were thankfully we only had a couple calls.
That's right.
It didn't cost us too much.
It wasn't that much, yeah. But, and we say this, you folks out there watching this who, own a service company, these are ideas that build culture, that make the technicians also feel more part of that. And when you get that buy-in, there's nothing like it. Now, we got to talk about this. Jamie, you and Jamie decided to sell the company a couple of years ago, and that's personal. But since then, what's Tina been doing?
So I am going back to my accounting roots, because I love numbers, money, and systems. And so there's a lot of companies that are really good at delivering great service and taking care of the customers, but not so great on the business side of things. And so instead of business owners suffering through financial statements and trying to learn accrual versus cash and all that fun stuff, I'm just really trying to help teach them more of what is the operational side of the numbers, so that way you can know what those key numbers are that you can impact and have improved profitability, improved culture, improved communication, all of those things, and really take care of the business side. So that way all the dreams that you had before you started your business, you can start to experience those from a financial standpoint. Yeah, because one of the, how many people start their business so they could live without a paycheck because it's winter, or skip a vacation. Their family's at the beach right now, but you can't go. That's not why you started your business.
Exactly.
So,
you just bought a job.
Yes, and so that was one of the good things. I don't know how to repair an air conditioner. I can't go fix that. I'm going to trust the professionals to do that. And so I was able to create systems and put the right people in place with the right tools and training, so that way the business wasn't dependent on me, where it operated profitably even when I'm not there. And whether you want to keep the business or sell the business, that's a great model to have. It's kind of like that TV show on HGTV, do you keep it or do you sell it kind of thing?
Love it or list it.
Love it or list it, yes, perfect. You can do that with your business.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you can put systems in place and the right people in place and keep it. That's the joy of owning the business, and when it runs without you. And a lot of that comes down to knowing your numbers and knowing the systems that you need to put in place, and then also communicating to your team by telling your team how much it costs to run a truck. You're not telling them all your financial business.
No, they don't need to see a P&L statement, but again, we know how much that helps.
That's a number they can impact.
Yeah.
That's a number they use every day.
Right.
Teach it to them.
Right. When they know that it costs whatever, $108, whatever, to run per hour to run the truck that they're running, including them, that makes them more mindful on profitability. I need to at least cover $108 on this service call. Not as an incentive to sell more stuff that's not needed, as an incentive to do their job better and to be more aware of that. But you have a teacher's heart, I know that, and so you are now. We're going to give reference to your website here in a few minutes, and tell us on your panoramicacademy.com. We'll put it on the exit here. Tell me, what is your goal for your training from this point on? I mean, your goal, your website is set up for who?
It's for business owners, and then also I'm actually creating bookkeeping training as well, because I feel like business owners cannot do anything from a number standpoint if you don't have reliable reports. And so the bookkeeping part of it is really important. So I envision a Netflix type of training where if you're faced with a pricing issue or an HR issue or something where you've got this one problem, you need one solution, think about Netflix, it's on demand and you can buy it, you get the information you need on a Saturday night so you're equipped to go back Monday and solve the problem. But then I also want to offer like one-to-one coaching and group coaching, so that, because sometimes the problems need a little bit more of a conversation. It's like, okay, well, you've taught me the basics with this on-demand training, but what about this? I've got this little bit of a nuance of a circumstance, and let me run that by you. And so I offer that as well. And then my ultimate dream is to have, more of like a long-term workshop, maybe a 2 or 3 day type of workshop where your business owners are able to like totally disconnect from the business, come work on the business for 2 or 3 days, and let's just really immerse on from leadership to really understanding the numbers, not so much really diving into financial statements, but more of like the operational numbers and how you can pull these different levers, which employees can help you pull the levers, and how can you communicate that to your team when you go back. Because if you've got the knowledge, it really doesn't do you a whole lot of good, but I can teach how to train your employees so you're all working as a cohesive team and get rid of those silos. That was one of the great things that we did at Brown is we ended up not having an install department because we had service techs that could do the install. It made us super efficient because if we had a need, we could look to see who was available, and we were able to match the need and cross department lines.
Doing that, Tina, went against all norms.
Yes, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was one of the best things that we did because you just
went against everybody's beliefs that you must have an install department. You must have salesmen that are dedicated to just selling. You went against all of this.
We didn't need that either. So yeah, you've got to just do what you feel in your gut. I know that sounds so silly coming from such an analytical person, but there is a point where a company does get big enough, they do need install departments. I do see that, but we were $2.5 million in sales. We were not at that point. And it also depends on the caliber of people that you have. Are they willing to learn and cross over department lines? Our team was equipped for that, where they were like, hey, what do you need? I want to go do it. Now, they did express an interest and preference. If I have to choose, I'd like to do this. But they were willing to go do whatever the dispatch board needed.
Yeah, without complaining.
Right. It was just perfect for our size company, and it helped us be more efficient. It helped us get the bottom line up. When we sold the company, the people that bought it said our numbers looked a little scary, but they were 100% true. And so, it's just really awesome to, I wish there was an award where you could like publish your profit and loss statement and kind of show that, but there's not for that. But there's just, you've got to be willing to explore some of the norms. And is it right for you? Is it right for where you're at? And then go back and ask why. When they say this is the only way to do it, ask them why. Learn the why behind that decision, because it might be that's not at all the problem you're facing. You're trying to solve something else. So just be open to that.
Yeah, and your KPIs, which you taught me that term. I never heard that term until I read it on my job description. Your key performance
Indicators, yes.
Yeah, and you always look at those, and you always analyze those. Is what we're doing making a difference? And we can certainly see that there every day. And you did go against some norms. And I know that for a fact. That's why I loved it so much, because you bucked the system.
And we kept the system simple.
You did.
We looked for ways to strip out things. One of my first things that mortified me there was a lot of paper in the business when we bought it, and one of the first things I thought I had gotten rid of all the paper, but I noticed my 2 lead installers at the time, they were sitting at the table. And I walked by, hey, good morning. Went and did my thing, came back, they're still sitting there. They are just studying this piece of paper. It turns out they were taking a piece of paper material list and handwriting everything that they remembered removing from their truck the day before.
Every screw, every wire nut.
Oh my gosh. And then they would give it to my service manager. My service manager was writing 5 cents, 30 cents, whatever it was. I was like, no. I removed the sheets. I had no idea that piece of paper was still there. I removed the forms from our little form area. I removed it. I looked at historical data. It was probably $50 from a residential standpoint, miscellaneous charge on every job, $75 or whatever the numbers were. No, I was not paying my most senior people to sit there at a kitchen table and do that. So I would encourage you just to step back and say, why? Pretend like you're a 2-year-old. Why? Right. And you can improve a lot of systems just by doing that.
Absolutely. We've seen it done, and very, very successfully. It just takes courage. And so, kind of starting to end up here, you and Jamie. Jamie had a little bit of HVAC background in the supply area, but you didn't have any baggage, meaning you didn't learn by sitting down and pricing out those 30-cent wire nuts. So it was easy for you to come in there and say, no. How about someone now who might be really struggling because they are basically under the load of having to do that? They feel like that's the only way. Encouragement for those folks to break out of that and
start small.
Yeah.
Look back on all the things that you're doing, and what's the thing you hate the most? It's probably the paperwork on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because you've been running calls all week trying to help your team get the board cleared. So there's paperwork on Saturday night. Start with that one. Get rid of it. And then you'll get a little bit of momentum. You're like, nothing broke. It's okay. And then go to the next one. And before you know it, if you just make 1% improvements, will have a drastic improvement on your bottom line, and you're improving employee morale. Those 2 lead installers didn't want to sit there. It was delaying their ability to get out and start the next install for the day. Right. And during July, you're losing the morning little bit of coolness, but it's like still 80 degrees. But you're improving so many different things. It's got this domino effect.
It does.
So start small, and just let it build from there.
One thing at a time. Just again, you just jump in one thing and say, okay, this works. Let's go to another thing. So, well, congratulations for such a successful business, and best of luck as you go forward. Now, people have asked us, and we'll go and clear it up here, is Tina available for private consultation?
Of course, for the right price, because I do teach about pricing. One of the things that I do enjoy doing is having like brainstorming sessions. And so I'm not going to come into your company and like work in your accounting software. I'm not going to actually reconcile any bank accounts or anything like that. But if you are sitting there with a financial statement and you don't understand it, if you've got an accounting department telling you one thing in your gut saying, I kind of wonder if this is true. Right. If you're talking to your CPA and all he wants to do is talk about tax returns and you're like, hey, I need some operational help, I'm the perfect person to talk to.
Okay.
And so, I'm totally up for that. Okay. And I've got packages on my website too. Okay. Whether you're just wanting one phone call or you want like a reoccurring kind of conversation.
Okay, very good. And we're about to put that information up here on the screen so everyone can get a hold of you if they'd like to. And I can tell you it would be worth your time and your effort to do that because I have learned so much about business just being around you. And you gave us the best advice that you could possibly give us, Kathy and myself, for this business: hire a good accountant. And so Tina White actually gave us the name of an accountant, and if Tina White gives me the name of an accountant, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great one.
It does.
And they are.
Yes, you're going to pay one way or the other. So you need to hire a great lawyer and a great accountant.
Yes, not in that order necessarily.
Not necessarily, but you're going to need one, and so you might as well go ahead and start asking for great referrals and building that relationship, because you're going to need it. A great lawyer and accountant pay for themselves, and that's the best sign. They take your phone calls. Mm-hmm. They answer your questions without a whole bunch of jargon, and they pay for themselves.
Right. And in our case, they kind of say, you know what, if you just move out of the way a little bit and just give me access, I'll just handle this for you.
Yes, that's the best ones.
I love that way. That is the best. Well, Tina, thank you so much for your time. And again, kicking off our series, and there'll be several, and I wanted you to be the first one to do that, the females in our industry, because they're it's not totally unusual, but we need more, and we need a perspective. Mm-hmm. And it is a different perspective, and I do appreciate that. And we wish you the best of luck as you move forward and what you want to do. And I know you'll be successful at it. And you and Jamie both. And so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share this.
Me too.